Howdy, welcome back to Midas Letter Live. My guest this segment is Matei Olaru. He is the CEO of Lift & Co. Matei, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Matei, Lift & Co. has been around since when?
2014 as a blog.
As a blog.
Yes.
And since then, you've achieved this visibility and sort of credibility in the cannabis space in Canada. And it sort of, to me, is all summed up in these great Lift Expos, as one of which is coming up here in May in a couple of weeks.
Definitely. I mean, the Lift Expo is really a physical manifestation of what we do. And that's bringing the industry together, from consumers to stakeholders to producers, under one brand, hence the new rebrand & Co. It's us and it's you.
Oh, very cool.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. What's sort of the driving concept behind the whole Lift idea? What's the purpose? What's the value proposition for people who visit the site?
Definitely. So, I mean, we are a consumer marketing and data company, a cannabis marketing and data company. And really, if you look at the modern cannabis space, there's 4 regulatory gaps, 4 market inefficiencies, if you will, which I love because that's what our business is based off of. So let's start on one end. You have licensed producers here. So let's say you're a producer. You're trying to communicate your product and value propositions. Regulations say that you cannot communicate your product effects and what that product does. Next up, you are treated today, and soon more so, like a cigarette company. So you're trying to communicate a product, but you're prohibited from communicating that product and building a brand or a value proposition which you yourself can't communicate either because you're being bundled into a cigarette company. And you're trying to communicate those two things to the third hurdle, which is an unsophisticated consumer base, because cannabis is prohibited for almost 100 years. And soon, the fourth, you're going to have government-controlled or fragmented retail. So you're going to have an agent between you, the producer, and the end consumer. You can't talk about your product effects, can't build a brand to an unsophisticated consumer through someone that doesn't really care about what you're saying because they're a government actor. So our platform, the content, the product database that we have really bridges that gap between producer and permitted consumer.
That's, boy, you almost made me cry there. That sounds like it's
It's always my intent.
It sounds like it's getting kind of tough to be an ACMPR producer and market your products. So that leads me to my next question. So is there any limitations or restrictions that you have to observe as a media platform to comply with the products?
Definitely. So we are very careful to not be seen as endorsing a product for any one effect. We're not promoting the sale of a narcotic. What we really do is we provide a platform where consumers, legal consumers, can share and journal essentially their experiences with certain products. And we use that, and that is the the product platform rather, Lift.co, where you read about 50,000 reviews now of legal products in the market. And that brings consumers into the fold because that information doesn't exist anywhere else, and they share their experience. And in that process, we're now moving them down a funnel where, let's say they want to learn more about any one producer, we empower those producers with the rewards program, which what it does is really award people for writing comprehensive reviews. So the more information you leave for our community, we reward you with points that you can then redeem for discounted purchases at your licensed producer. So it's always meant to be a very neutral platform, and always will be a neutral platform that is meant to connect and empower different stakeholders.
So users of cannabis write your content?
Correct.
Well, that's got to be just amazing. Like, that just strikes me as so sort of authentic as a source that I just question, like, so how do you curate that content? How do you keep the quality high?
That's a great question. I mean, we have to keep in mind that Lift is a legal cannabis company. Today, that means we play exclusively in the medical space, the ACMPR space. And because we have this regulatory vacuum of information, put yourself in the situation of a patient looking to find a product that's right for their affliction. You are prevented from differentiating products on what might be right for your MS or your headaches or whatever you might be afflicted by because of regulation. So we have that playing to our advantage in the sense that there is a need for this sharing of information. And we have taken an approach to always play with people that want to move the conversation forward. So for example, most recently we partnered with Matei Canada to create a retail training program for retailers across the country to basically empower them with the same information we're empowering consumers behind the counter so they can intelligently speak about cannabis, and soon about product level comparisons when you're asking the person behind the counter. So I guess in a long-winded way to answer your question, how do we maintain that authenticity? It's at the ethos of our brand. It's the only reason we exist, because trust, in my view, is a currency. And trust in a regulated industry coming out of prohibition is paramount to pushing that industry forward.
Mm-hmm. You recently received financing from institutional investors to take your whole platform to the new level, which I imagine is going to result in a public listing at some point.
Correct. So you must be referencing our announced RTO,
right?
Which we announced a couple of weeks ago. So the company has raised $4 million in capital to date, venture capital, and most recently a $1 million small round from high net worth individuals. Mm-hmm. But what's coming up is a private placement up to $15 million, and that will be led by GMP Securities, which will end in what we're targeting to be a TSXV public listing somewhere in the next month to 2 months.
Well, that's fantastic. And the conference coming up, what are the dates?
The dates are May 24th to 27th.
And where is it?
At the Metro Toronto Convention Center in downtown Toronto.
Wow, and who's exhibiting?
Oh man, at least 250 exhibitors from across the industry and across the world, really. We really see that Lift Expo kind of as that nexus for the Canadian and rather global cannabis industry. So we are attracting exhibitors from across North America, across Europe, all the way to Japan. And the attendees are exhibitors from these companies, but people that are entrepreneurs, investor, novice consumers that want to learn about the space, perhaps connoisseurs that want to see what the next stage is. It's really a full spectrum of the industry and its stakeholders.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's fascinating. We're obviously going to follow your progress as a public company. We'll leave it there for now. We'll have you back soon. Thanks for coming in today,
Thank you so much.